Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda Radhe. Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda Radhe. Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol, Jai Om Vishnupat Paramamsa Parvicharya Stata Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupat Paramamsa Parvicharya Stata Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Shila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Iskon Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shila Haridasa Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Goklananda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Sitarama Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. Go Nitai Bhagwan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to the assembled devotees. Oh glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasari Bulla Shri Madhavati Churu Swami. So Prabhus, we continue with the third canto, and we're on the third chapter now, verses here 25 and 26. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, 25 is not on the board, but 26 is. So I'll just recite 25 first. This is the third chapter of the third canto, chapter entitled The Lord's Pastimes Out of Vrindavan. 25 is Tataha Katipayarir Manashir Vrishni Bhojana Dakdadayaha Yayaha Prabhasham Samsrita Yathir Deva Vimohitaha. And the translation is, a few months passed, and then, bewildered by Krishna, all the descendants of Vrishni, Bhoj, and Andhaka, who were incarnations of the demigods, went to Prabhas, while those who were eternal devotees of the Lord did not leave, but remained in Dwarka. And then 26, if you could kindly repeat. Tatra shnatva pritir devan. Tatra shnatva pritir devan. Rishims chaiva tad ambasa. Jai Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai. Prishim chaiva tat ambasa. Tar pavitratha viprebhevo. Tar payat vitbhata viprebhevo. Gavo bahu guna duaha. Gabo bahu guna dadu. Tatra snatva pritir devam. Rishims chaiva tad ambasha. Tarpayit vatha viprabho. Gavo buho guna duho. Tatra smatva pritindevam. Bahugana buna dadu. Viprebhyo Bahuguna daduhu. Mataji's. Tatra, there. Shnatva, by taking bath. Pritnur, forefathers. Devan, demigods. Rishin, great sages. Cha, also. Iva, certainly. Tad, of that. Ambasha, by the water. Tarpayitva, by pleasing. Atha, thereupon. Viprebhyaha, onto the Brahmanas. Gavaha, cows. Bahugunaha, greatly useful. Daduhu, gave in charity. Translation. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the brahmanas in royal charity. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Amongst the devotees of the Lord, there are several divisions. Mainly Nitya Siddhas and Sadhana Siddhas. The Nitya Siddha devotees never fall down to the region of the material atmosphere, even though they sometimes come onto the material plane to execute the mission of the Lord. The Sadhana Siddha devotees are chosen from the conditioned souls. Out of the sadhana devotees, there are mixed and pure devotees. The mixed devotees are sometimes enthusiastic about fruitive activities and are habituated to philosophical speculation. The pure devotees are free from all these mixtures and are certainly absorbed in the service of the Lord, regardless of how and where they are situated. Pure devotees of the Lord are not enthusiastic to put aside their service to the Lord in order to go visit holy places of pilgrimage. A great devotee of the Lord in modern times, Sri Narottam Das Thakur, modern times, has sung like this: to visit holy places of pilgrimage is another bewilderment of the mind, because devotional service to the Lord at any place is the last word in spiritual perfection. For pure devotees of the Lord who are completely satisfied with the transcendental loving service of the Lord, there is hardly any necessity to visit the various places of pilgrimage. Wow. But those who are not so advanced have the prescribed duties of visiting pilgrimage sites and regularly performing the rituals. The part of the princely order of the Yadu dynasty who went to Prabhas, performed all duties to be done in a place of pilgrimage and offered their pious actions to their forefathers and others. As a rule, every human being is indebted to God. The demigods, great sages, other living entities, people in general, forefathers, etc., for various contributions received from them. Thus, everyone is obliged to repay the debt of gratitude. The Yadus went to the Prabhas pilgrimage site, performed their duties by distributing land, gold, and well-nourished cows in royal charity, as described in the following verse. The translation once again, kindly do repeat. After arriving there, all of them took bath, and with the water of this place of pilgrimage, they offered their respects to the forefathers, demigods and great sages, and thus satisfied them. They gave cows to the brahmanas in royal charity. Jai Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yaina Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastarya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Tinamine Shringaja Chetaha Srupaneta Vagdinam Chara Supatam Prabhupadagata Prana Naimi Bhakti Charupadam Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pastarya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschaste Satarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bancha Kalpatrubhascha Kripa Sindhubhaya Vacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Prabhus, I seek the blessings and mercy of all the assembled and unassembled devotees, so that I may say something of significance and something meaningful. This is one of my kind of favorite chapters in the third canto, because there's pastimes. I like a bit of pastime as opposed to the philosophy. And third canto, nice. It's better than the first. But the third canto, the entire third canto consists of two parts. And has a total of 33 chapters. And in essence, there are 5 themes. The first part begins with Krishna Leela, which then follows into the creation and concludes with the Varaha Rup Leela. And then the second part begins with Kadarma and Devahuti, which is the fourth. That's the fourth theme, and the fifth theme is the final one. Is again, it's Kapila and Devahuti. So these are like the 5 themes to it. The first chapter of this canto is when Vidura advises Dhritarashtra. It was good advice to give up his parental affection for Duryodhana. I mean, those who have sons, it's a difficult thing to do. Even if the sons somewhat do their own thing and don't listen, doesn't matter, beta, you just carry on. You know, do what you want in life. Now, to give up that affection for Dhritarashtra, impossible. With such a son like Duryodhana, who is so very determined, you know, he can persuade anyone. So how can he? It's such a difficult thing to do. But, however, we do know that, you know, Dhritarashtra was truly blessed ultimately because of Vidura. Vidura pulls him out of everything. And of course, unfortunately, Vidura is insulted by Kali personified Duryodhana, and Vidura takes this as a blessing. Now, if I was insulted by a nephew of mine, you know, I wouldn't particularly take it as a blessing. I'd be very upset. I probably wouldn't have the courage to leave the house. I'd try and get him out of the house, but then, you know, you can't do that when you have someone like Duryodhana. So you'd have to put up with it. You'd have to tolerate and really put up with all the nonsense that goes on. And of course, Vidura goes off on pilgrimage. He meets Uddhava and he asks him to describe the glories of Lord Sri Krishna. And the chapter the first chapter has 45 verses. In the second chapter, Uddhava becomes ecstatic, describing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Who wouldn't? He says, who is more merciful than Krishna? Who gave the demon Putana the position of his mother? Who would do that? Although she came to kill him, a mother who comes to kill him, and yet Krishna is so exceptionally merciful and treats her like a mother. So Vidura was quite, very happy in hearing that. So now in the third chapter, summarized that after leaving Vrindavan, Krishna marries thousands of queens. I mean, can you imagine the Lord doing that? It's quite unique. Beginning with naturally Rukmini, and by expanding himself, he simultaneously somehow lives with all 16,108 queens in Dwarka altogether. This third chapter has 28 verses, and the first 3 verses, 1, 2, 3, is really Kans is killed by Krishna and Balaram. Verses 4 to 7, Rukmini swept away by the Lord. 8 and 9 verses, Krishna marries the kidnapped princesses. From 10 to 13, Krishna exhibits the powers of his devotees. Interesting theme there. Text 14, the great burden of the earth abated. And then from 15 to 17, the Yadus quarrel among themselves. From 18 to 20, horse sacrifice performed by Maharaj Yudhishthir. And then 21 to 25, Krishna enjoys conjugal love. And then finally, from 26 to 28, so we're in this part, the Yadus visit places of pilgrimage. So these current verses are indicating the final pastimes of the Lord and the Yadus. And hence, to know more, we have to look at the 11th canto. I was just reading the verses of the 11th canto. And the first chapter gives us detail on the curse upon the Yadu dynasty, and hence this is what's been described. And the 6th chapter is all about the Yadu dynasty retires to Prabhas. So that's been kind of given. And indeed, Prabhus, the Yadus had become an absolute burden on the planet. That's kind of difficult for me to understand. How can the Yadus become a burden? Prabhupada mentions that there are trillions and trillions upon trillions of Yadus at the peak. And at one point, it's mentioned, Prabhupada mentioned that 38.2 million teachers teaching the kids. I mean, that's more than half the population of the UK. That's just the teachers. So you can imagine, how many there were. It was 16,108 times 10, 160,000 children, just sons. And then obviously there's daughters of the Lord. Each queen gives the Lord one daughter. The chief being Jarumati. Jarumati is married to Kritavarma. Kritavarma is always protected. Why? Because he's the son-in-law, he's the Jamai Raja. You don't do anything with the Jamai, the son-in-law. Rukmini instructs the Lord, when in battle, make sure he's protected. And hence he survives. Some 640 million entities come to an end. Some 5.76 million Kshatriyas come to an end. 11 survive, and Kritavarma is one of them. Because he's fully protected. Anyway, here the description is given of the retirement. And the Lord has to make an arrangement. And if you can imagine, how the heck is Krishna going to make an arrangement to get rid of all of them? Like after 7 days of the curse, they somehow are annihilated. And the Lord makes that arrangement. The Lord, of course, he comes to Dwarka for the last time from Hastinapur. And he enters the palace of Rukmini. And generally, the Lord goes and sees Satyabhama. She's not the prince. She's queen number 4, but, he should really enter Rukmini's palace. But he's somewhat... Every time he comes from his travels, he goes and sees Satyabhama first. Why? Because, she's the one who's in control. Krishna is totally and utterly henpecked when it comes to her. She's the only personality who has that authority over the Lord. And hence in Chaitanya Leela, she's none other than Jagannatham Pandit. And there's beautiful pastime there. But Krishna immediately comes to Rukmini's palace, and then he comes out. And he finds Lord Balaram. And he says to Lord Balaram that, listen, we have to leave. Lord Balaram says, well, what do you mean we have to leave? This description, incidentally, has been very nicely given in a book. In a book called Krishna Vijay, Bengali. Compiled or written by Gunjaraj Khan in 1473, prior to the advent of the Lord, and it's written in somewhat simple Bengali language. And when Mahaprabhu, got hold of it, he was very happy with it. He gave his approval, as it were. Gunjaraj Khan, somewhat of a contemporary of Mahaprabhu, and the Khan was quite delighted, and of course it has been translated, and we do have it. We might have it in reception, not sure. We did have it a few months back, or I don't know, a couple of years back. But a nice description has been given of the departure of the Lord and the departure of the Yadus. And the Lord persuades Balaram that we have to head towards Prabhas. The Yadus have already gone. They've gone on a vacation. They've gone on a holiday. They've gone on a retreat. Our Keshav Maharaj likes to organize retreats, doesn't he? He's going one tomorrow, I believe, on the PS mentorship retreat. So they like to go on retreats. They like to go on vacation, holiday. They've all gone, so we have to go over there and to make sure that they behave themselves. So Balaram says, well, do we have to leave Dwarka? And what do you mean that we have to leave for good? Krishna says, yeah, it's time. It's time. We've been here too long. We have to wind things up. So he persuades them, and he persuades him. Rukmini Devi is fully aware. We know that from the introduction of the Chaitanya Mangal, and she's in tears, because she knows that things are coming to an end. Regardless, the Lord leaves, and he enters the province of Prabhas, and he then somewhat tells Lord Balaram that you now have to take samadhi. You have to enter the water
But however, do one thing. Just because of formalities, expand yourself. Because one of you have to remain on the banks so that the funeral rites can be conducted. But then you can enter the water. So somewhat reluctantly explained, Balaram, Lord, he's in agreement. And from the water emerges a brilliantly white, that's a nice white, though mine's pretty awful, it's not that white. Brilliantly white Anantashesh comes from the water and somehow cocoons the Lord. This kind of description is given. Cocoons the Lord gets inside, and then the Anantashesh then enters the water. And that's how Lord Balaram departs in accordance to Krishna Vijay, Gunjaraj Khan. And of course because the Lord expands, and Krishna is just, Lord Krishna is witnessing all of this. He's there contemplating and he's witnessing. He's the only one there. By this time, the Yadus have done their thing. They've had their little battle. Well, not little, somewhat, because there's so many of them. And of course, what occurs is that Shamba 7 days prior, you all would know. 7 days prior, the boys are playing in jest, and they disturb the sages. There's the iron ball. Shamba is dressed as a Mataji. And, ask the sages, what's it going to be, a boy or a girl? The sages get upset, and hence the curse is there. Jai Shri Shri Radha Goklananda ki Jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki Jai, Gonitai Bhagwan ki Jai, Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. And as a result, when you've got someone like Durvasa Muni there, you don't mess around. The dynasty is cursed, and it's mentioned in 7 days your dynasty will come to an end. And hence, in absolute fear, the boys run to Maharaj Ugrasena. Ugrasena instructs the blacksmiths, take the iron ball immediately and crush it. And of course they attempt to crush it, they make powder out of it. But the core of it, marble size, some unique alloy it was that they just couldn't crush it. The king himself, now this king, Ugrasena, has billions upon billions of servants. And yet he himself takes the ash, as it were, the powder stuff with the blinking marble, and he personally tosses it into the ocean because he's so worried. He just couldn't let anyone else do it. Everything else is done by others. His nails are cut by others. His socks are put on by others. Of course, probably didn't have socks, but anyway. His dhoti is put on by others. And yet, this particular type of task, he could not have anyone else doing this. Not even Krishna or Balaram. He himself goes and scatters the ashes, as it were. And of course, what happens is naturally the fish swallows the marble. The ashes of this alloy, as it were, it washes upon the shores of Prabhas. And along, the beach, anyone been to the beach lately? I haven't. I mean, the best beach in the entire universe is in Jagannath Puri. Who's been to Jagannath Puri? Wow. Yeah, of course. Who hasn't been? Oh, you've got to go. You've got to swim in that ocean. The Lord did it 3 times a day, if not more. But anyway, the Prabhas, the beach is there, and immediately within no time the ashes get swept up in, and then immediately, from these ash as it were, iron rods come up, 8 foot tall, if not taller, and iron, can you imagine cast iron? I mean, of course, if that was available during World War II, and it was in Britain, let's say the beaches on Brighton, we would have won the war immediately. There wouldn't have been any issue of the Battle of Britain, because you've got so much iron. You could build tanks, you could build absolutely anything from aircrafts to, ships. We have an aeronautical engineer over there. He could have built all these aircrafts and defeated everyone. And anyway, but if you could imagine, 51 centuries ago, all these iron rods were there, and of course, they all turned up there, and they're all intoxicated. Kritavarma, Salva, main personalities there. Everyone then plucks out this rod, literally, 8 feet, each 8 feet, and there's thousands upon thousands of them, a forest of them. And with that, they have a wonderful battle. So all this has happened, and the Yadus lie there. They have left, but their bodies lie there. And Krishna is somewhat contemplating. Lord Balaram has entered the waters and cocooned his expansion. The body is lying there in the banks, and then the Lord turns and he begins to walk. Just prior to that happening, Daruka appears. Daruka is the charioteer, and he appears, and he's alarmed. Actually, he comes off of his chariot, and he says to the Lord, "What's happening? It's like World War IV. What's going on? Forget World War III. This is what's going on. Is the world coming to an end? Is it, annihilation time?" And the Lord gives him brief instructions. Of course, Daruka's position is truly, truly amazingly unique. What to speak of his position, but his son's position. His son is the charioteer of the son of Krishna, Pradyumna. Daruka's grandson is the charioteer of Abhimanyu. Aniruddha. Aniruddha is the grandson, son of Pradyumna. So it's the parampara, and so a unique position, and he's waiting for instruction. And the Lord says, "Look, go back to Dwarka. Bring back Arjuna." Daruka says, "But my Lord, Arjuna is not in Dwarka. He's in Hastinapur. Why would he be in Dwarka?" And the Lord says, no, by the time you get to Dwarka, Arjuna is going to be there. Bring him here, because he has to perform the Antim Kriya, the funeral rites of all the Yadus. And the women can come. And so, of course, Daruka then pays his pranams for the final time. And he gets on his chariot and off he goes. He wanders off, and the Lord then truly mystically starts in a very casual manner walking. And of course he gets to a tree. He then begins to lie down on the tree, the branch. He has his hands like this, leans back, and he brings out his right leg with the left folded in. It's a very, nice posture of the Lord, and you may see him now and again. And his right leg, he kind of dangles. and the leg then stops because, it's inauspicious to dangle the leg. When we were children, we dangle, and parents would say, "Don't do that. It's not good." So the Lord then stops, but from a distance, Jara, the hunter, who has caught the fish, and this fish has naturally, swallowed the marble, cuts the belly, gets this marble out. It's pure solid iron. Jara manages to, he was quite ecstatic, having this wonderful, metal, and he shapes it. He must be a bit of a blacksmith. Shapes it like a spearhead, and puts this on his arrow, and with that arrow he shoots, thinking that the Lord's right leg, as it were, is an ear of a deer. This is what's been explained, an ear of a deer. Of course, we know that that arrow then hits the right Achilles of the Lord, and hence the right Achilles of a body is the weakest point of the body. You shoot the Achilles, the body will just collapse. So the Achilles is such an important, tendon here. And so that's what happens, and the arrow goes through. Jara runs because he's thinking he's caught something really nice. Of course, he runs there and he sees it's the Lord. He's actually bewildered. He's just mesmerized. He pays his dandavats. He somewhat is a pure devotee at that point. And he says to the Lord, "Why me? Why am I being chosen for this? Why me?" And the Lord then explains, hang on a second, don't worry about it, mate. There's a reason. And the Lord says, look, in the previous, in my previous avatar, in Treta Yuga, I was Lord Ramchandra. And in order to, have a duel with Bali, the Varna, it's appropriate etiquette. Actually, it's appropriate etiquette that if one wants to have a duel with another individual, then that individual both of them actually have to seek the permission of the sun. So if someone wants to have a duel with me, hopefully not, because I'm not in any position to have any duel, they'll have to seek the permission of my son. And if the son grants permission, then the duel can take place. So similarly, the Lord went to Angada. Of course, Angada biologically is the son of Sugriv. Sugriv being the younger brother of Bali. But because Angada was raised in one sense by Bali Raja, the Lord Ramchandra had to seek permission Angad. And Angada said, "My Lord, of course, please engage in this duel, because the duel will mean that my biological father will come back and take over." So hence the permission was given, the planning permission was granted somewhat, and of course the Lord Krishna mentions that he says to Jara that you, my friend, you were Angada. And back then I'd mentioned to you that in our next encounter, in my next avatar, you would be the cause of me leaving. And hence, this is the reason why you're in the middle of this now. So, of course, Jara is quite surprised. He's, of course, happy as well, because soon enough, a Viman appears from Vaikuntha. From the Viman, 4 Vishnu Dutas come out, if you can imagine this, and they come to where Jara is. And Jara is a hunter. He's got a hunter's body, not particularly handsome. And but they escort him up onto the Viman. Halfway getting on board, Jara's entire identity changes, because he's with the Vishnu Dutas, and his entire body is somewhat transformed, and he has the four-armed Narayan form, and they enter, and the whole thing then closes, and off they go. So Jara is, and the Lord witnesses all of this, and his hands are back like this, and in a very relaxed mood. I'm not quite sure what kind of happens to the arrow, but then the description is given. Then his transcendental body then is somewhat lifts, and he enters all the realms, the 14 planetary systems, and then everyone on those planetary systems, even in the nether regions, even in the subterranean regions, those who are fortunate take darshan of the Lord, and then the Lord then gradually goes and he leaves, and that's the departure. And that description is truly nicely given, so well given in the Krishna Vijoy. Prabhu's, I wanted to go on and on, but I got carried away. I thought to myself I would describe that very quickly. Of course, in the purport of verse 26, there is the mention of the Nitya Siddhas and the Sadhana Siddhas, and in accordance to the nectar of devotion, persons who have achieved eternal blissful life exactly on the level of Sri Krishna, and who are able to attract the Lord by their transcendental loving service, are called eternally perfect. The technical name is Nitya Siddha. So the description of both are given in the Nectar of Devotion. Nectar of Devotion, exceptionally important to all of us. I only pick it up when I have to give class, which is a bit of a pity. But our manual, and so a lot can be said about that. But unfortunately, my time is coming to an end. I wanted to mention that, of course, the pilgrimage description has been given here towards the end of the purport, on the 26th purport. And pilgrimage, so much can be said, but to end with, next week we have the appearance of Lord Advaita, and the week after, on the 21st, we have the appearance of Lord Nityananda. And so, even coming here and being here, we are somewhat on holy ground. We're in pilgrimage. Observing during that time, and being able to celebrate the appearance of the Lord, it's all part and parcel. Because I was just thinking to myself, I haven't been to Puri in 10 years. I'm dying to go, but when I got some solace when I read this purport by Srila Prabhupada. But thank you so very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Any corrections, comments, gladly accepted. Questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. I'm just wondering, in the verse 25, it describes that those who are incarnations of demigods went to Barbas, but the eternal devotees stayed in Dwarka. Do those who are eternal devotees versus those who are demigods, do they have some recognition that they are actually demigods? Or are they simply absorbed in the pastimes? How do they actually know who's who?
Yeah, intriguing question indeed. One could only speculate. there are indications which somewhat lead us to think that, yes, the identities are revealed and that they would know. And even so, due to the Lord's Yogamaya, because the Yogamaya is so very important, that energy of the Lord. And that Yogamaya covers the identities. For instance, Maharani Satyabhama, her knowing that in Chaitanya Leela, she is Jagannatha Pandit. What to speak of the gopis, who she would be in Raj. Sometimes, Vishaka, Lalita, all these are the gopis, and they appear again in New Dwarka. Mathura turns up in New Dwarka. So like that, it's, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It's immediately taken away as well. The Lord's Yogamaya. For instance, the parents of the Lord, they're the parents, but sometimes they're also not the parents. That relationship has been taken. And they see him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the Lord himself appeared, Vasudeva Devaki, immediately the Lord from the baby form, the Narayan form. So, this is the God, this is the Lord. So the prayers are there, and these are the parents. But then, of course, the Lord goes back, and he's a baby again, and hence they become parents again. So it's intriguing, very intriguing. Unique, very personal, I would say. Very personal. Thank you. Yes, Paramakruna Prabhu.
Just wondering, these personalities go to Prabhas to offer respects to forefathers, engage in rituals. They also worship demigods. So practically, what does that mean for us? Are devotees meant to do something when they go to holy places to respect the demigods or forefathers? That was my question. And also another practical question. Do we go to holy places? How regularly should we go? How important is it for us to go?
Yeah, such relevant questions. I have come across Prabhupada mentioning that every year or two we should go on pilgrimage because it would boost our batteries, as it were. So the more regular, the better. It's just practicality. So yes, we need to experience yatras, and hence devotees do that yearly, bi-yearly. The more, the better. In that sense. And what was the first one? Oh, yes, right, yeah. Well, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, after the departure of Jagannath Mishra, goes to Gaya, and he performs the rituals. In every, most of our kind of rituals are Bengali based because our founder Acharya is Bengali, the lineage is Bengali, so the tradition is there very much in Bengali custom, and of course respects to the forefathers are there. Prabhupada was very, very careful of even not worshipping Mahadev, Lord Shiva, and just recently I was listening to Shuddhidhamma Prabhu in the car. I got this CD with all his. Now that Prabhu has done something very nice for me, seldom he does, but he's given me a couple of CDs. It'll be very merciful. So I've got on one CD 41 lectures, and just the other day, he was saying that Prabhupada had come to, with some disciples and devotees of his, come to a temple of Lord Shiva, and of course, Srila Prabhupada paid obeisance and somewhat worshipped. And when they came out, I can't remember which temple it was, because you're kind of driving and listening as well. But when they came out, the devotees asked him that, do we worship Lord Shiva? And of course, Srila Prabhupada said, he's Param Vaishnav. So, if you worship, there's not going to be much harm as such, but Prabhupada's response was, he's Param Vaishnav. I'd go to the extent of worshipping the lotus feet of all the devotees, worship. And of course, in the same lecture, Shruti Prabhu mentions that it's always good to be at the back of the temple room, and in the middle are the devotees, and over there is the Lord. So the devotees are your buffer. You don't really want to go right to the top. Have the devotees. Somewhat worship the devotees, because they're your buffer. This is what he was mentioning. And of course you have the Lord there. Of course, I was quite happy to hear that yes, have the devotees in front, look at the floor and meditate on their feet, as it were, during deity greetings or, Mangalarti. And of course, they're your buffer. And then you've got the lordships on the altar. So, if one were to do that, is that worship? Is it respect? When I was a wee young bhakta, which I still am, we were instructed that every day you must pay obeisance at least 3 times to a devotee. And on one occasion, I didn't pay my obeisance to a sannyasi. Well, I did actually, but he didn't see that. And I was truly reprimanded. I was trying to tell him that, Maharaj, I paid obeisance, but it was at a distance when I saw you. Again, coming back to, sorry, I don't want to go off on a tangent. Coming back, in the ritualistic aspect of life is there, whether it's the spiritual life, whether we lead the the so-called mundane life, but the duties are there. The gopis themselves, they somewhat worship, Maharani Katyani. And why do they worship? Because they want the Lord as their husband. So why does, Jyotila allow Srimati Radharani to go to the banks of the Jamuna and worship Surya Narayan, the sun god? Because that's protection for her lineage, her family, her, forefathers, etc. So she allows Srimati Radharani to do that because that's custom. That's tradition, that's culture. That's very much there. But having said all of that, especially to the neophyte devotees, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Gauranga Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord, worshipable. Lord Nityananda is Balaram Nityananda. These are the Supreme Personalities of Godhead. And they are worshipable. Full stop. Of course, I would like to worship Lord Shiva. I wish I was a devotee of Lord Shiva. A few moons back, giving class here on Shivratri Day, and I had such a wonderful time. Mother Kalanganat, after the class, during the class, I can't remember, she says to me, were you a devotee of Lord Shiva before you came to ISKCON? And my response was, well, Mum, I wish I was, Mum, but I wasn't, unfortunately. But, anyway, thank you so much, Prabhu. Your breakfast getting somewhat cold. We're almost 9:15. Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thank you. You don't even go? Oh, I was